Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 30th June 2020, and these are the couple of articles we'll be dealing today. The first article for the day is titled "In 24 Hours, Palestine Faces an Existential Threat." So this is in the context of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that he is planning to effectively annex parts of the occupied West Bank. So let us have a look at what this West Bank is and what would be a major and highly controversial act in this context. So what is this West Bank? So West Bank is a chunk of land which is located to the west of a river called River Jordan. So on the west bank of this River Jordan and bounded by Israel to the north, west and south. So this West Bank has been occupied by Israel since 1967 Middle East War, but decades of difficult on-off talks between Israel and Palestinians, both of whom assert rights there, have left its final status unresolved. So this is one area where between 2.1 million to 3 million Palestinian Arabs live in the West Bank. In this area, the self-rule is very limited. So the vast majority of the international community considers the settlements illegal under international law, though Israel and US under the Trump administration dispute this interpretation. So in this context, what is the meaning of annexation? So when we use the term annexation, it generally means that when a state unilaterally proclaims its sovereignty over other territory. So can we say there are any examples in recent times? Yes, a recent example was Russia's annexation of the Crimean Peninsula in 2014. Mr. Netanyahu has said the plan is not annexation, although it involves applying Israeli sovereignty to the parts of the West Bank which contains Jewish settlements as well as most of land which belongs to West Bank's boundary with Jordan. So this is called the Jordan Valley. What this move can do is 4.5% of Palestinians in the West Bank living in enclaves within an annexed territory will now be subjugated to Israeli law. So there is no freedom for these Palestinians. So Mr. Netanyahu has said Israeli sovereignty will not be applied to these Palestinians in Jordan Valley. So these areas which are earmarked for annexation may comprise about 30% of the entire West Bank area. So Mr. Netanyahu may initially act to annex just the settlements which could amount to only 3% of the West Bank, but the remaining 27% may have to wait until the boundaries are agreed with Washington. However, the Palestinians seek the whole of West Bank, to which they claim a historical right. For a future independent state along with the Gaza Strip, that is somewhere here, any annexation by Israel, they argue, would leave Palestinian areas fragmented and the Palestinian people with considerably less land for a country of their own. So if this is so controversial, why is Israel doing it in the very first place? Israel claims historical and religious rights to the West Bank, and it is considered to be an ancestral land of the Jewish people. It also says its presence there, especially in the Jordan Valley, is strategically vital for its self-defense. So given the complexity of this case and our historical stance on this issue, what is our historical stance? We have always stood for a two-state solution. We have already decided that we will be supporting a two-state solution, that is a separate Palestine and a separate Israel. However, in recent times we have a lot of dependence on Israel and we have followed a policy of looking at Israel and Palestine in different silos. So we are not trying to associate our relationship with Israel through the lens of this conflict between Israel and Palestine. So given that fact, India cannot afford to step back on its promise because that would damage its credentials. So therefore, according to this writer, India should stick to this two-state solution only. That is the gist of this article. The second article for the day is taken from the Live Mint, and it is about the social stock exchange concept for NGOs. One of the biggest problem for NGOs is to raise capital and ensure credibility. We have had various controversies where the Ministry of Home Affairs had to interfere to ensure transparency and block certain NGOs which are resorting to fraudulent practices. Now, given that context, SEBI was recently asked to come out with a report suggesting a mechanism for NGOs to raise capital. So, it is in this context the SEBI's committee has come out with a report which talked about a novel idea called the social stock exchange. So, what is the social stock exchange? So, this is nothing but a platform which allows investors to buy some shares in social enterprises. So, what is this social enterprise? What is the definition of social enterprise? A social enterprise is an organization that applies commercial strategies to maximize financial outcomes, social outcomes, and also environmental well-being. So, this is about maximizing the social impact alongside profits for co-owners. That is the key idea for social enterprise. So, it was in the Union Budget 2019 that Indian government has proposed setting up the first of its kind social stock exchange in India. So, the social stock exchange concept will function as a common platform where social enterprises can raise funds from the public. So, it will function on the lines of major stock exchanges like Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange as well. However, the purpose of this social stock exchange will be different. Not profit but social welfare. In this context, under the regulatory ambit of SEBI, a listing of social enterprise and voluntary organizations will be undertaken so that they can raise capital as equity, debt, or units like mutual funds as well. So, what is the purpose of this social stock exchange? How can they help? So, basically, India needs massive investments in the coming years to be able to meet the human development goals identified by global bodies like UN, especially to target sustainable development goals. The idea of capitalism has not been so successful in ensuring that social welfare takes the front seat. Even with mandated philanthropic activities through CSR, we have had limited results. So, there have been calls by global bodies like the World Economic Forum to move towards stakeholder capitalism, which means that every person or every body that is involved in an economic activity should be taken as a stakeholder and their interest should be factored in while taking a decision. Even that is yet to see some success. So, given this and also our necessity to reach the sustainable development goals, this idea of social stock exchange is a novel one. Currently, we have a lot of buzz around these social enterprises, but they have a problem in raising funds. One of the biggest hurdles they face is the lack of trust from common investors. So, to address that particular factor, SEBI's report and SEBI's idea of social stock exchange will definitely reap in many benefits. So, what are the kind of benefits that we can expect? Firstly, there is a great opportunity to unlock funds from philanthropic activities, CSR spenders, in the form of zero coupon, zero principal bonds. Also, social stock exchanges will be ensuring that they can categorize different social enterprises based on their stage of development, their ideas, and what is the evaluation of investors themselves on a group. So, all this can be facilitated through a stock exchange. So, this is not just a platform to unite both the investors and the people who are seeking funds. It goes beyond that and ensures that the idea of social welfare is institutionalized through a profit making body. That is the speciality of this, and this is a very important topic for civil society as well as NGOs. So please make a note of this. That's it for this article and that's it for the day. Thank you.